Primary ignition.
This is Star Wars.
Look out!
Core World News.
You may fire when ready.
From Starlight Beacon, I'm Grex Kondak, and you're listening to Core World News, your trusted Homeland News service providing in-depth coverage of the latest stories from around the galaxy. Welcome to a Reading Rathtar special. And now, your host, Ben Grant and Adam, to discuss Star Wars, The High Republic, Fallen Star, by Claudia Gray.
All right. Thank you very, very much, Grex. Welcome, everyone, to a special edition of Core World News. This week, we are hype about this book. We got another book coming out. Love going into the High Republic and getting totally wild. Fallen Star, I hope you've got a chance to read it. If you haven't, there will be spoilers, possibly immediately. I don't know how this one's even go.
It'll be
Immediately.
It'll be quite early, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pause now.
So, pause
Read the
now.
book.
You know what?
Back.
No, we can do a general summary.
No.
It sets it up before
No.
the spoilers.
We should
No.
do a general summary. You're right.
All right.
Yeah,
All
We should do a general summary. There will be spoilers in the general summary. It's kind of hard to not do that. Do you want to tackle that, Grant, or would you like me to?
So
do
before spoiler wall, I guess we could say, while ruthless Nihil attacks around the Outer Rim cause the Jedi and Republic forces to enter a state of disarray and scatter, a far more sinister plan unfolds on Starlight Beacon.
Ooh.
Dun, dun,
Good.
dun.
And striking fear into the Jedi Masters charged with safeguarding the station, you could add.
Yes,
That's
indeed.
before spoiler wall.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Spoiler wall up. Now I'm going to finish that summary. Everyone dies.
Yeah.
You just need that, all you need is that extra sentence, and it's the complete plot of that book.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get at Claudia and be like, your body count, like she has the
Yeah.
biggest body
Yes,
count,
that
highest
is.
body
Yeah.
count of any author in any single piece of media ever.
Next to episode 3, this is like the bloodiest thing we've seen for Jedi.
Yeah, that was pretty. But
I still think we see more.
Dustiest, 'cause
I think we
remember,
see more
dusty
die.
dust.
dustiest. I know.
Yeah.
I love how we're reporting from Starlight Beacon, so I
Ashy.
guess we're like underwater.
Yeah. We're doing it
Yeah,
as we're entering atmosphere.
spoilers. This is the last time we'll be broadcasting from the beacon.
Yep. That is,
Yeah.
Because we're basically using a dagger to find it in the surf and going inside and
I
using
know. And
what
recording in
consoles
air
are still
bubble.
operating.
Oh man.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is a ride.
This is a ride. I do love how it began. I really liked Elzar Mann in this book, and his journey in the surf. I like the character of Elzar Mann quite a bit for a main, butt chin character. He's like, it's dynamic, and I love that he's like growing and evolving and learning about himself and the Force. And he's flawed and he's dealing with it. But it was like he, in the last book, he, in that accident on Vala. What was that one called? Rising Storm.
Rising Storm.
Yes, Rising Storm. Yep.
He, he used the dark side to like throw a starship or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like
He's fighting in the attack on the fair at the end there.
riding a dragon and throwing starships and stuff. And he was like, I need to check myself. And so he does on this one, which is kind of interesting. I'm surprised they actually followed through on that. And he goes to an island planet, a planet with all water and one island.
Sounds familiar.
Does a little bit.
And inconvenient for him too, because because he's kind of reserving his connection to the Force or kind of turning it off. This book, he's not aware of the presence on Starlight Beacon that is taking out Jedi after Jedi, and it's convenient for him. It's actually a kind of defense mechanism for him in this book, which is why he survives it, and it's quite astonishing he makes it through all the way, because he was getting to he was teetering in the last book.
I love the I don't know what you would call it. It's not a metaphor, but his relationship with water and the ocean. We see him in the first book, just like floating and meditating in the ocean surf, just being one with the waves or whatever. I don't know. I just like that iconography. And then he realizes like, well, no, it's not all about, like releasing. It's sort of like working with the Force. And he's, even as like an elite Force user of all the Jedi in this high point in their history, he's still learning about, the fundamentals of the Force, and that stuff I could read for days. I love learning the nature of the Force stuff.
It seems like in that the Rising Storm where he's meditating underwater. I guess it's not meditation. I think he was just doing what came natural to him. But in this book, he is meditating with Orla Jareni in the beginning, and trying to do a handstand in the surf and just getting knocked over. And she's like, the Force is like the ocean; you can't control it, which is a great sentiment. Coming from her, I really love that idea. That was a great analogy.
Yeah, I mean, second to that, and what it made me think of was Luke's teachings to Rey in Last Jedi on Act 2. And I really actually thought that was the most beautiful teaching. I mean, obviously Yoda's in Empire Strikes Back is the, pole star, but they, I really loved the way that they're like, this is how the Force works. This is, it breathes, there's good and bad, death feeds
and
life,
that
life
comes
feeds
up
death.
again later with Orla and Stellan too. So Orla is sort of as a way seeker, as someone who's a little bit going a little deeper in the Force and has gone, to distant worlds to understand it and learn about it. She seems to have a greater knowledge of what it is and as far as control and whatever.
Right. Which I think is really the through line, at least through this first phase, right? In that what we're seeing, I think, is that the Jedi, our main Jedi, have been part of this group that just doesn't have any connection to outside of their own sect, right? And I feel like they're starting to. It's interesting because I feel like they're actually getting really close to the Jedi we see in episode, in the prequels, even though we have hundreds of years to get there. But Orla seems to be the one that has like the truth, right? This idea of it's you can't put these strict rules on top of it.
Right. Orla's kind of the closest to like an Ahsoka or a Qui-Gon sort of character. She's just like, the Force is what it does. And I go, like, literally, she's just like, I'm going to walk down this corridor because the Force feels like it's bringing me there. I don't know why. I'm just going to walk, and like, it's going to take me somewhere, and I'm going to go there because that's the Force as well. I do want to circle before we get like down this rabbit hole of death. I just like, I think early on we had all sort of described like our favorite Jedi of the High Republic. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Adam loved Yaga Agaburi.
Yeah, that's correct.
Grant, you loved Stella Maru.
Stella Maru, yeah.
Yeah, and Orla was an early favorite of mine. And, so I'm just going to just plant that seed, and then we'll table it. We'll put it over there.
All right.
And off we go.
Yep. Well, we do get some of Stella Maru in this book, which I loved. I just loved every line from that character. I mean, it's devastating later in the book when you find out that when they're severed from when there's a split and you kind of teams are divided. You learn a lot of damage has occurred up in the top part of the tower.
Yeah. So we do get a severing before the the Starlight Beacon fiasco. Well, the ultimate end. We learn that it splits and there's a top half and a bottom half. I don't really know how that works. But pretty much the second half of the book concerns everything that's going on in the bottom half, and we just know that the top half exploded and there was some Jedi involved, and Stella Maru
was on board, I believe, in the explosion. So
he went down with the ship.
You're suspected to think a lot of these characters die, but there are ancillary books, there are comics, there is other material.
I'm guessing that's going to be
that can pick up in and around this story.
Yeah. There's still a lot in phase. Yeah.
I think the comic book is the main Marvel comic run is gonna tell that story.
Yeah, I agree.
For the main High Republic run, that character was designed for that run. I think for that. It's his story to be in that run.
Right, and Avar seems to be more in that run as well. Avar Chris
does. Which is fascinating to me. It's fascinating that they put like a comic book story at the top of the tower, and almost like the novel, it deals a lot underneath in that other section.
I mean, and it's really telling because when you read it, you're like, we're just skipping over what's happening in a whole section. Like it feels very like if you didn't know this was part of a larger publishing like storm, you would be like, wait, what's happening? Why are we not talking about what's going on over there?
Yeah,
right. That
they're
seems
very predicated on what came before. Like you need to have read Rising Storm to even understand what's going on in this book. And even the comics, I would say, add to that.
Yeah, it would be tough to sort of. I mean, so I started going about I think I was a quarter of the way through, and I was like, I've been holding off on the comics. As people know, we've been sort of waiting to do full comic runs before we report on them, which is like, I don't know how that's going to go. But I was like, I'm like, I have to catch up on the High Republic because I don't want to miss anything, and I wanted to see where that story was going. And it doesn't lead up to this moment. It gets close. And they essentially, this book tells you kind of where the comic run's going or what ultimately happens.
Right. But do you think the story will pick up during this book and then move into territory after?
I think the comic book run will. I think it's going to end in an issue or two.
Yeah, and the title of the current run is Jedi's End.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that'll be fun, actually. I don't know. I mean, I would get behind that. I don't know. We'll talk more about this whole like how they're treating the Jedi. It's like, again, it's like another story of watching Jedi be incompetent and fail and all die.
It's like Jedi emergency response, you know, for how many pages, and it's a lot.
It can be frustrating at times, right? Because you have grown to love these characters. You know they're very intelligent, but they have such blinders on that you're just kind of like. It reminds me sometimes of like we've talked about in the podcast where my least favorite trope in TV or movies is any situation that can be resolved with just two people having a quick conversation.
Right.
Right. And so some of that happens here too, where I'm like, oh, if you would just share some information, like we would know what's going on. But
I know, and it like if you're gonna set that up, it would be so rewarding. Like I think it's just like my general psyche right now, but. Can I just watch a show where all the good characters don't get totally owned and die or like led astray? I just feel like it's over and over. And so in this, I was like, come on, I'm like, these people, I can see you all have the pieces of the information. All you have to do is communicate, and then you can beat this threat that's coming your way. And it just doesn't happen.
Yeah. And it's especially interesting too, because we now know that there are 3 phases to the High Republic story, which makes sense. Star Wars likes to tell things in trilogies.
Yeah.
Generally, you end your first part of a trilogy on a high note, right? Like that's like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, right? You have a major victory. This felt like the ending of the second part of a trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah. My big prediction.
It's going to get worse. I think
it has to.
It doesn't do any real mirroring of Light of the Jedi either. Really,
no,
in a lot of ways. And I was like, in terms of a disaster, sure, there's a disaster in response, but I really thought Avar Kriss was going to play a huge role in the 3rd book of this first phase, mainly because she plays this massive role at the start of all of it, and I thought there was some battle meditation was going to occur during the during the sabotage of Starlight Beacon. Yeah,
I really think. Sorry. I really think this book is the first, this is the first book of the second act, correct? Or this is the last?
No, this is the 3rd book of the first act.
Oh.
These first 3 books are almost the first film in like a trilogy.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
I think what we're seeing is I am all for this multimedia project, right? Where you're telling stories through adult books, middle school books, young adult comics. I think it's working really well, but part of the issue then is you have to peel away certain things to go into these things. So the mainline books, sometimes I feel like it underserves certain characters because this character is being focused on over here in this comic or this other book, right? So it's like it gives with one hand and takes away with the other, right? When it comes to this multimedia project, if you're not fully in, it can be a bit confounding.
And that's why we're here. We're here.
Exactly.
Shepherd, if you don't want to watch
fully in, we are doing it all.
Yeah, we will give you every gritty detail of this whole thing. If there's any piece that you don't have time for or don't have the money, I mean, it's expensive to buy all these comics. We will walk you through it when those things happen and keep you abreast whatever piece of this you like. It's all worth reading. It's all really, fun, but it's also depressing. It's like, even, I was thinking this was kind of like the first act of Empire Strikes Back, where it's like, okay, but still, like, the good guys find a way to escape. But like, if this was Empire Strikes Back, it's like all your main characters got eaten by wampas. Like, that's
yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Well, the
Like
villain
only
kind of
only
like
a couple of people made it off the
paraded
Hoth.
or celebrated in on some distant world. It was just there wasn't any retribution. Like we didn't get back to fighting the main villain in any way. It just felt like just loss after loss. It was tough.
This is Markion Ro's big W. I mean, his first big W.
In real dark territory for Star Wars as
real
to go. Honestly, this suicide attack. They even name it in the book at one point.
Yeah,
but it's interesting too.
Suicide sabotage. Attack on the tower.
Yeah, but he's also gotten much better with his attacks because remember in the first book, he sacrifices dozens upon dozens of Nihil, right? With the jumping thing at the very end.
Yeah.
3 Nihil die to pull off this scheme. Yeah. Right? Like he's gotten effective and scary to a point where although the vocal performance may not feel frightening, this character is very frightening.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm talking about this being like a downer because the bad guys win, but it would be not inauthentic, but it would be wrong of me, I'll just use plain words, to suggest that I haven't been asking for this book for a very long time. It's it's not like, polished up for Disney. The bad guys win. It gets super dark. Main characters die. There's a real threat. Like you might not be with me on this, Adam, but like this is the most scared I've been for like a Star Wars villain since the Yuuzhan Vong. Yeah, I really only read the beginning of that arc, but I was like, oh, as soon as you take away the Force, these people, they're floundering. The Jedi have no idea.
Yeah. Side note: I just started book 1 of Force Heretic, and I have 4 more books left in that old canon arc. No, I do agree. I sometimes joke about the choice of the vocal performance, which is not how I visualize a person, but like I think he is. I mean, I don't know. How do you end this book and go, what a poser, right? Like he did it. Like he has. I mean, the closest anyone else has gotten to this. I mean, he's gotten the closest to Darth. To Darth Sidious.
Sidious, right? He's one step ahead of the heroes, right? It's like a handful there.
And he's not. He doesn't have the Force, as far as we know. He is just a regular dude.
Well, so I think there is mirroring in this series, but the mirroring is with like the original trilogy, because essentially the dark side killed the good side's Death Star, right? Their Death Star piece.
Interesting.
I think the one weird part of this though is he's almost too removed from the plot. He's almost like Jigsaw from Saw, where he's like watching monitors of the horrors and atrocities throughout the book. And to me, I was like, it just felt like it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of time until we find this guy and get him.
Well, I really thought he was going to get taken care of by the end of the first phase of this series.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
No, because he has to set up a droid army and then be the first droid army.
Right? Exactly. So I'm happy to be wrong, because I think there really are like slowly building. That's the other thing I appreciate.
That's kind of the organic tissue. That's the connective tissue we all want to see, right? Is like, where did the Trade Federation get this idea for a droid army? Like, how far back does that span, and who was the first person to do it?
Yeah,
right. And I love they were like kind of illegal then, and he was just like, going against the whole thing. Even though pretty sure the Nemodians still have like the Trade Federation ships. I think they mentioned them in some of these books.
We see them in, I think, one of the comics. They definitely have them. They're around. We hear them in the audiobook, but I'll move on from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get to that, though. I think that the droid reveal stuff is kind of later in the book.
It is.
Point being, Markion Ro is a fantastic villain. He's right. We've been begging for a real threat, and he's clever. And he's in ways that Sidious isn't. He's not just like another Sidious clone. Like he's a guy. He doesn't wield the Force, but he's pulling strings, and I mean, and he's smashing senators like while his plans are going on, like, you know, like, I mean, he's kind of a great villain.
Which is, anyway, it's weird to think that that person's related to Han Solo's ex-wife, but that's some weird Star Wars connection. That's a weird sentence. But, you know.
Oh, yeah, Garrus Staros. Just
Garrus Staros. Yeah.
Yeah, she's related to Son of Stars. I mean, great
I'm like, what?
aunt or something.
Okay, all right.
But I will say this, like, it's a unique character. It's a character we haven't seen before in Star Wars. It's not a dark side user. I'm kind of appreciating how, if you were to think about it, he almost feels like the spoiled, like if you're looking at like a high fantasy novel, he feels like the spoiled prince of like an evil king, except he can but he has the like the goods along with it. Like he can actually get stuff done.
Yeah,
it's really
he's merciless. He just like it just thwarts people. And then also there's the new Eye of the Storm #1 that I think just dropped this last week, which gives us the origin of Marchion Ro, and you kind of find out he comes from like a kind of like a warring, you know, culture. Dog.
Do you learn about his species?
Yeah, you learn about his species, you learn about his world, you learn about Asgar Ro, his mother, everything. You learn about everything in this comic book. It's a two-parter. It's kind of an interesting structure.
We can cover that soon. Read it yet. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I have a feeling all these comics are gonna end in like the same month, and we're gonna be like, it's gonna be Comic Palooza.
It's going to be interesting. The High Republic stuff, which they are taking a bit of a break. They are going to wrap up Wave 3 in April, but there's still like a lot of comics coming out. There's another book that came out alongside of Fallen Star, which is the Mission to Disaster.
That's right. Yeah.
By Justina Ireland, which we'll read and we'll report back. But I think it's the young.
It's a Vanestra Rowe is in there because she was missing from this, and I was like, not enough Porter Engle, not enough Orbelin in this book.
You know, but hold on. But you know, Porter Engle is getting his own comic.
I know. Deservedly so. I mean,
during
that character's incredible.
Phase 2
a prequel comic too, right? It's like when he was played Bardon.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
How he learns how to cook maybe in this comic as well.
I'm here for that. Yeah. That sounds so much fun. Wow, they're really going crazy. I didn't know all these comics were coming out. Those are going to be fun to read.
That's next year or next fall, I think. It's during Phase 2, but yeah.
I didn't know about that Vern Rowe book, man. That'll be good. And then we've got another sort of Daniel Jose Alder has a book coming out that's awesome.
All right,
Midnight Horizon.
Midnight Horizon,
Midnight Horizon. That sounds incredible.
And the cover art's great. It's just like two dark hooded like Jedi figures.
Jumping back chronologically, we did the Elzar Man Orla Jareni meditating on the beach.
Yeah.
Then they link up with Geode. Wait, what did you think of that reveal? What did you think?
Oh yeah, that was a great reveal. He's like, "Is this an altar or something?" He's like, "Should I kneel and pray?"
Yeah.
He's like, "I see you found the navigator," and I was like, "Oh."
Yeah.
Dude, I'm here. Again, I don't want to I've said this a million times, but the rock jokes, like Claudia Gray and her rock jokes, yes, it keeps on giving.
It really does, and every joke is a different take on it. Like it's just, it weirdly doesn't feel like there's some jokes that are funny and then stop being funny and then come back around to being funny again, which you would think this would be. But it is funny every time because it's always a different take on it that I'm just loving. Yeah,
but if we have to interact with him at all, can you leave that to Geode? I know he doesn't like Lynn any more than we do, but Lynn can never get a rise out of him. Not that the man hasn't tried.
I mean, I know it's amazing. They hint that he's flirting with a married woman.
Yes.
At some point.
Yeah.
It's just so good.
Yeah, guy gets jealous because Geode is like moving in on his wife, and it's like a whole scene.
And he sees it.
And they're like, Vindians don't like mate with other species. Like, don't worry about it. Like, he wouldn't do anything even if he could. And it's just like
but then to her side, she's like, "Oh God, he's on the prowl again."
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's really
even Leox knows. He's like, oh, he's doing his thing.
What's amazing about the joke, not to overanalyze a joke to kill it, but so Claudia Gray does two things in here. And one of them is she will do internal monologues or internal observations that are punny, right? Or that are just kind of based on like just really funny, which you can totally do in a book. It's probably, it's all just dialogue. It's really easy to do. Not easy, but you know what I mean? Like it lends itself to a book. She does visual gags where you can almost sense the camera cutaway. Do you know what I'm saying? Where like I can
it's very
visualize
cinematic.
it. It's a cinematic joke. It's a cinematic joke that just works, and it's really impressive because you read it and you can visualize the camera cut over to Geo.
Yeah, there's even a scene where like astromechs gather around Stellan, and it felt very cinematic.
I have all of these quotes. All right. He stood upright with a jolt and saw that the ramp was down and he was being watched. Geode stood there, expressionless, never turning away from Cully Lynn. It's a rock. I heard a rumor you've taken on other work.
Cully Lynn. We need to talk about this guy.
I'm not sure I would be there any more than one ship in the galaxy willing to hire a rock. His jibe had no effect on Geode's hard, cold stare.
Hard, cold stare.
And so since we're sticking with the Cully Lynn stuff, like don't forget, like one of my favorite things in movies, TV, video games is just a quick draw contest. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we get a quick draw contest with a rock basically in this.
Yes.
So you have the quote after Geode kills Cully Lynn or Cully Lynn kills himself.
Oh yes, that was my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have that one, Ben?
Oh wait. Yeah. Hold on. Stand by. Sorry, this is
sorry to put you on the spot.
We can carry on chronologically until you find it. So they meet up with Geode Leox. There's Nile attacks going on around them.
All right, here it is. Coley collapsed to the ground. The last thing he ever saw was Geode standing over his head, just like a tombstone.
Just like a tombstone.
Yeah, just like a tombstone. That's
right. Like literally like a tombstone. He is a tombstone.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It works on multiple levels. Oh, I love that so much.
Okay. Yeah. No, every time more than a little guffaw. Trying to explain that kind of humor to your wife who doesn't read Star Wars books is really quite a thing. I'm like, but it's hilarious.
Oh, you know what? Bless you for trying, because I just kept that one to myself. I chuckled a couple times because I was listening or reading in bed. And Carla's like, what? I'm like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, you're right. You're like, how do I even?
Unless are you having trouble falling asleep? Because I can explain to you and you'll be asleep in 5 minutes based on how long I take to explain jokes.
Yeah, I think that joke would just fall flat. Mm-hmm. Sorry, I was trying to make a rock joke there. I couldn't do it.
Almost.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We get a lot of Geode though, and you get Geode throughout this book, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Well, we get the whole crew of, I can't think of the name of the vessel, right? We have Affy and
named
Affy
ship
Hollow.
in the galaxy.
Yeah, Affy Hollow and Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
And I mean,
which he actually does do the all right. He does it in this book. Yeah.
I really like that crew, and I like the characters, and I like that we get the closest thing to Han Solo we're gonna get in these novels. Which
you talking about Geode again?
It's kind of what the sequel trilogy.
The strong silent type.
Yeah,
just a fun smuggler. And Yox is that in every way. It's just a really fun character.
Yeah, it's kind of what we were missing a bit in the prequel trilogy, right? You don't get a lot of regular dudes, dudes, but like regular people. And so I appreciate that in the story of Space Wizards, we have this crew wandering around.
I like the Adrins too. I'm glad they brought them back.
Yes. Yeah.
Pika and Joss.
Yeah, who were part of the short stories, right? From the
Star Wars Insider.
Star Wars Insider. Yeah.
And I think they had a large part in Light of the Jedi as well. First Captain Scott book. Who wrote this? Who wrote Resident Storm?
Cavan Scott wrote.
So who wrote the first? Did he write the first two?
Charles Sewell wrote the first.
Oh, Sewell, Scott, and then now we have Claudia Gray.
Yeah,
okay.
Which are like your three heavy hitters. Nothing against, by the way, Justina Ireland and
Daniel Jose
are amazing, but those three, the other like adult novels they've written in the Star Wars canon are just amazing. So it's just really,
I mean, the prose around like the catastrophe in this book and like all the mayhem happening on the station is just gorgeous. Beautiful descriptions.
I mean, it was tragic, but there was a lot of feels in this book because of it was just like one heartbreak after another.
But it was entertaining too. It was very tense, and I felt like the station was falling apart around me, as it was. It was pretty wild.
Second half of this book, I was just mowed through. I killed it in the sitting. It was just like I had to keep reading. I was like, what happens next? And it was I don't know if you noticed, this book was cut like all the chapters were super short, and they just jumped around from point of views. But it was cool because it was so fast and it was very consistent through the whole thing. So it kept you. It really moved quick, I think, because it skipped around quickly.
And we get to Starlight and we get like Buryaga, Bel-Zettifar, their masters Nibasik and Dira Stokes. We get a new Jedi.
I loved him.
Reginald Cole.
Yeah.
He's a really fun Jedi. Like, he was a Jedi. I was like, this guy's hilarious. This guy is like a bright, like, leader in the Order. Like, he seems to get things done. Like, I loved this character, and then taken away way too quick.
I was about to say, we hardly knew ye.
I know, he was a Jedi comedian, and his thing was he taught like super younglings.
Yeah.
He was like
Crash. Let's go back to Crash, guys.
In the Crash, back to Crash. He I don't know. He had one line, and I thought I saved it, but I can't find it. It was something like, you try to like wrangle a bunch of newborns that realize that they have magical powers, and I was just like, ooh, that is a total horror movie.
It's terrifying. I just think about raising one that doesn't have magical powers.
Choked, like, stop.
I know, right?
But I want to mention, because you Grant, you mentioned Bel-Zettifar, and that was my way through the second half of this novel, where it gets really grim. Is we also see the rise of a new hero.
It's a tough look for Bel-Zettifar, though, I must say, because
why?
Dira Stokes is like, look at the cargo man. We still have to like look at all the cargo manifests before we do anything else, and then like the disaster happens. Like, he's just about to see like what everyone brought, or like analyze what everyone has brought to the station.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, that happened many times though. There was so many like, I'm just going to investigate what's going on.
Or the droid. It's like there's a little droid cutaway who didn't realize what was being left out of that. But like Bel-Zettifar past that, like, has a hero moment, and we see him. I mean, I'm surprised it didn't end with him being knighted. Right? Yes. This was a Jedi Knight move in the last third of this book, of just like, nope, I'm doing this. I'm going to save everyone. And I mean, we'll call it now because it's telling about it. Like, Buryaga Agaberry, like, we can talk about it now if we want, my favorite Jedi. I was like, you just see it coming, and I'm like, no, don't kill the sensitive Wookiee.
I know, who was like, again, your fave, and I guess asterisks to be. He has not died, and they mentioned that he has not died in front of anyone.
I believe in Bel-Zettifar. Bel-Zettifar believes he's alive.
He's alive at the end.
So,
it says,
Yeah, and he learned his lesson from Loden Greatstorm. He's like, you know what? The Force is telling me Loden was alive, and I ignored it because people told me to ignore it. He's like, I'm never ignoring these feelings again. And we witness in a really beautiful way a Padawan really becoming a Jedi Knight, and like what it takes to sort of have confidence. Like, we see his confidence build. I thought it was wasn't Loden going to make him a knight before Loden died?
Yes. Yeah.
So I was like, that's kind of a ripoff. He's like kicked back down to Padawan, like, for Dira Stokes, and he's doing manifests and stuff like that. Like, I thought he was already there, but like now, Claudia showed how he earned it. Like,
I think the loss of Loden really showed why he wasn't quite ready. Loden may have thought he was ready, but I don't think he was until this moment, right? Yeah. Like, he needed that confidence in himself.
There were a lot of Jedi doing weird, like, technical chores in this book, though, too. Yeah. So, like, I think in this book, it was just merely like, he lost his master, so he's not going to get knighthood. But his Indira Stokes believes in him, I think, in a major way. But again, she gets partially husked in this book, and it's
partial husked,
devastating.
Which is what happened to the Tarek and Sarah too. Actually,
we'll get that in the comics,
But apparently, it's we. But I'm curious to see what that means, like, to get partial husk.
Yeah.
What happens to you if you just get like nibbled on, but like not the fangs don't go?
What is that monster's name? I forget the name. The Leveler, right?
The Leveler,
which Okay, so if I
This
had,
is where the major criticism of the book is coming. Before
Oh,
we
is that-
discuss,
I think we were
going on.
both about to jump in at the same time, Grant.
I just wanted to
Go
warn
for
our
it.
audience that a lot of people
Yeah.
are going after this element of the book, and I
Yeah.
think it's unfair. I mean, I know there's not a lot of description, but this is a big deal. This is something that can disrupt force use, and you don't want to name it like the Yuzong Vong. You want to draw it out, make it mysterious.
If any monster movie has
Yeah.
taught us anything, especially going back to Jaws, the less you show a monster, the
Right.
scarier that monster is. The second you start describing it and showing it and naming it and giving it form and shape,
Right.
it just becomes a Rathtar that you can just kill.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Right.
there's a reason why I was more disturbed by the leveler than I was by 3 Rathars rolling around the station.
And I think the most we got, and I don't even know if any of the surviving Jedi figured it out, but they did figure out it's a creature, like it's an animal.
It's a
Right.
thing. It's a,
So
yeah,
let's
it's an
jump
actual.
through the story.
Or
So
things.
we get to the story. They
Yeah.
bring in some Nile prisoners, Nan,
Non.
Chansey Yarrow.
Like that.
Yep.
You just made me hungry.
Then they meet
I
up
know.
with other Nile later, Kale and Liel and some other guy.
Yeah.
Well,
And they sabotage the station, massive explosion, and then we have Jedi exploring the kind of aftermath of the explosion, maintenance tunnels and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's where you get this leveler, this creature attacking Jedi, killing them, petrifying them. But they all hallucinate, and before they die, like it's
Yeah.
terrifying.
it's like Medusa for Jedi.
Yeah,
Oh,
Like you,
yeah.
if
Yeah, I mean,
you
that's
see
it.
it, you're dead. Like that's
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or
It's
if you-
also outside the Force. It's also like outside the purview of the Force, which is like
I mean,
that's, I think the newest, most interesting, most compelling concept in the book.
it's Yuzong Vong. But
Yeah, it's-
anyway,
I mean, it's-
Right.
it's
yeah.
exactly how the Yuzong Vong are described. I'm not saying that it's going to be Yuzong Vong, but I like that idea. I like that they borrowed or parallelly came up with that idea of things that
Right.
aren't visible in the Force.
From the like Rising Storm, or where was the first time we see it? We saw it in Light of the Jedi, didn't we?
No, it was.
Was that the first place? Or was it Rising?
No, it was in Rising Storm. The Marchion Ron was on a hunt for it, and then we see at the very, very end, after Loden Gray's storm kind of escapes for a little bit, and then
Right,
gets
it's the
off-
second
off-
book.
Yeah, it's right towards the end that we
I
actually
thought
see
it was described as kind of like a hellhound, 'cause, like when he releases it to go
Yeah,
cause.
It is Hound of Baskerville-esque, I must say.
I
Yeah.
think
It seems to listen to him or something.
it definitely does. I think what we're getting when we see descriptions is, I think what they're going for is that everyone who sees it differently. Does that make sense? Like they have their own
Yeah.
description of it. which
Well,
is
except it's
interesting.
just like falling and dying.
But it does seem to like
Sure,
sink its fangs into you or something. These cold fangs.
Yeah.
Like you turn icy and then this cold. It's hungry, obviously. The
Hungry,
hunger,
yeah.
The hunger is something all the Jedi sense before they perish.
Mhm.
I mean,
it's
there
like
are.
it's like a Jedi. It's like a Force eater or a Jedi eater. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there was like rumors of that, right? For Rise of Skywalker.
yeah,
there was
episode
going to
9,
be like
yeah.
a Jedi eater. I think it was going to be a machine or something. But this is like an organic thing that like literally just consumes the Force out of Jedi and the whole life force out of thing. Like, but it leaves like regular people, like normal people alone. It's wild.
And she uses kind of like highfalutin verbs, like when she describes the movement, like it's roiling towards us. Like you wouldn't normally use that word, but like
Right.
it's like I looked it up too. It's like a muddy liquid expanding kind of like definition, and I was like, okay, like it's very amorphous right now, and it's interesting that they're keeping it amorphous for this long, because in Rising Storm there was also zero descriptions of this
Yeah.
level.
Right. So like a book and a half.
So a lot of readers are just getting kind of upset. I think they're kind of wearing thin with why is it killing them? What is it? Where is it from? Why is like too many have died at this point? We need like a little bit of information. But I mean, I'll point you to the comics. There's a Trail of Shadows comic that I think is delving deep into the Leveler. There's other material coming up that's going to. We have there are 3 books coming that might be all about the Leveler and where it comes from and what it means.
Yeah.
There's
I
a
mean,
lot coming.
The most important plot point about it for this book, though, is an aspect that I don't really think they went into much in the last one, which was that its mere presence disrupts the Force. It's like it severs your connection to the Force by proximity. It doesn't even need to be right near you. Like being on the space station with it, it was like everyone got like the Force plague and couldn't use the Force, which is like the only way that this level of disruption could have occurred on the space station was if they had this sort of disruption. Otherwise, everyone's Force sensitivity would have been like, something's going wrong in, the loading dock. We need to go figure that out.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a lot of there's communication disruptions all around, and the Force, the actual comms going down. Like,
as we know, that could mean
Starlight Beacon needed a bibble.
Yeah.
It needed a
side bibble. They would understand. It only means one thing.
It only means one thing.
It only means one thing.
I love that we were all trying to be the first one to get there, and I'm like, I'm just going to talk. I'm going to get there.
Grant. Yeah,
he needed a bibble.
And I was just like, side bibble.
What's interesting is that on Wikipedia,
Bibble's rule, guys. Sorry,
the Bibble rule. I love it. Wikipedia does not have this as the Great Leveler. It just has it as a nameless creature, and that's similar to the Leveler, and that there were multiple ones released on Starlight Beacon.
That makes sense because it like cuts away from Orla to like a cargo bay scene where like a latch opens or something. Oh no, that's later in the book when
it is. I have a feeling that this is just because I mean, let's be honest. Wikipedia is not like it's not run by Star Wars. So I have a feeling this is going to be something that when we check back after things have been explained, that it's all going to be the Great Leveler, right? Like it has to be the Great Leveler.
Well, so there's many of them. It's not just one.
That's true.
We have learned that there were many on that ship, and then ultimately we find out Marchion says, "I know where to get more," which I was like, "No, I thought we were done with this." I'm like, "At least they're gone." No, we haven't. Ever since he said that, Adam, that it was like the ultimate destruction of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, because they say that in the book. Marchion's like, that's my next stop. Like, you think this is something? My next thing will be destroying the Jedi. I'm like, you're not going to destroy the Jedi, guy. Like, no. But I think they might actually go there. Like, what if they actually just shatter the Order, and then that is the thing that they have to rebuild back from. And
that's true.
It challenges the whole element of the Force and the nature of the Force, and that the Jedi have the whole dogma of the Jedi. And they have to rebuild themselves.
It's very telling that the Jedi that we know to have survived into the prequel era are nowhere to be seen currently. Like Yoda's gone.
Yarael
there's a lot of Yoda
on
in this
like
book,
a beach
actually.
somewhere.
There's a good amount of Yoda in this book. Orla Jareni recalls a moment with Yoda, and she dies, basically.
Yeah, but not like, but he's not there or
no,
around.
He's not in the book.
It's all flashback. Yeah,
it's just you're recalling moments with him. There are like some setups that I think that we could look at when we think about the Leveler. Like Ty York's a monster hunter, major character.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Why wouldn't she seek out the Leveler and take it out? Avar Kriss with her battle meditation, I imagine that's going to come into play at some point again. They sort of like her ability to connect all the Jedi together. She's going to break through this cloud of the dark side or whatever. This force that seems to be the whatever the force field that the Leveler is generating. She's going to do something to break that, I imagine.
Grant, can we step back for a second? Like, I think you're onto something there, because like we got a lot of Elzar Man in this thing. Like he's the main POV.
Yeah, he is.
Rathtar. And but he has a connection with Ty York, and they make quite a team. And he's like, okay, this is a beast. We learned that. He's like, I'm gonna go get the best beast hunter I know. And then bring her back into the Jedi fold, and that could be a way that they strike back at the Leveler.
Yeah.
Speaking of Elzar Man, this is kind of I'll make a bit of a connection. I just read the newest Star Wars main run comic, so it's not within the High Republic, but Luke actually meets Elzar Man, or there's a whole plot where he gets sucked into a living planet, and this planet
Ego.
Right, yeah, Ego, the living planet. Right. Anyone who gets in this fungus planet, their memory is encased there. So he gets sucked in, and Elzar Mann had visited there at some point. So he gets to sit down and have a conversation with him. And there's this amazing moment where he talks about like, well, I've only known 3 Jedi. And he's like, well, Yoda. And Elzar Mann's like, oh, yeah, Yoda. And they have this kind of funny conversation of like, he was already crabby when I had him. I can't imagine how crabby he is 200 years later. Mentions Obi-Wan nothing. And he goes, and then Anakin, who was a fallen Jedi or Jedi who went bad. And there's this moment of Elzar Mann just goes, yeah, that happens sometimes. It was just this really amazing moment that I was just and actually like, that's what I love with this cross-pollination stuff where I'm like, oh, that gave me a little bit of chills of just Elzar Mann's memory just going, yeah, we go bad sometimes. Like,
he would understand.
Moment.
He would understand a Jedi going to the dark side.
But coming back, and that's,
Oh, so it's ambiguous enough where it's like, it could have been his, like.
Could have been him or it could have been someone else he knows, but it was just a nice little moment. Yeah.
But he could have just been talking about Rising Storm, where he was like dipped into the dark side for a second and like worked to come back.
You know what would be really impressive is if the Jedi somehow had to use the dark side to destroy this threat in some way.
Like I'm wondering if you get that with some of them
really cool.
quote unquote taint themselves.
That's really cool.
A greater good argument. Right?
Greater good.
Yeah.
That would be really
That would be great, because I'm just like, their whole thing is like, we can't kill these Nihil because they're living beings. And I'm like, yes, you can.
Yeah.
And then, but like, what if they go a step further? It's like they start going down that path, and then they're like, well, the only way to kill this leveler is if we use the dark side. And it's like, but and it's like suddenly this slide, and really showing you like why one step toward the dark side is one step too far.
Right. Perfect. Yeah, that's the main lesson, is that it's miraculous that person can come back if they do have to go there, to stop.
Yeah. They mentioned it in this book too, where it's just like, and I think they put an exclamation point on it with Elzar, which is like, he made all this progress. You were just like rooting for him. He was doing all the right things. And at the end, he had one slip and lost his friend's life.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, their lives,
Yeah.
They just don't, but yeah.
So
in a moment that is like brutal in its description of just cut a person in half. And
I saw that coming from a country mile too. And
so after Leveler takes out the people, we can get into spoilers, I think, at this point.
I mean, I think
we're well there.
I think we're already
because like then a major explosion erupts and Starlight Beacon severs in half. We talked about this earlier, but it's an incredible moment. Just the descriptions there with like the ground shaking, the groaning beneath their feet, the banging above them, just like it felt like a nonstop plane crash, like the entire time.
Just like a slow motion plane crash. Yeah.
Right.
And then you find out that Iram's gravity has now begun its pull on the space station.
Yeah.
And Leox actually gives us that information, which is pretty cool. It's cool to actually have him break down a lot of the technical beats in the book. Leox Giassi. He's really fun character.
Matthew McConaughey.
Really awesome character for exposition. Like one of the best characters for exposition I've read in a book thus far.
And also ton of heart, and like the thermal detonator segment was hilarious.
Amazing. And then it's just a scramble for survival all across the station. Should we pour one out for the ones who got husked, the Jedi Masters?
I mean, do we have 37 beers?
Oh my God. We had talked about before the show, like doing a shot for every dead Jedi, but like that we wouldn't be able
alcohol
to do
poisoning.
podcast.
Yeah.
We would get alcohol poisoning because it was like, say their names, like Orla Jareni,
Reginald
Bassick,
Cole.
Reginald Cole.
Yeah.
Maybe not Buryaga Agabury.
We'll count them amongst the dead for now. I think that's fair. So we know what there is. Yeah.
Estella Maru.
Yeah, Stella Maru. Don't forget Stella Maru.
And Stellan Gios.
Stellan.
Right, Stellan. Big one. Big.
Yeah,
one of the
spoiler here.
One of the three parts of the constellation.
Is not.
It's already down.
I'm sure someone's already made this, but if not, Ben, since you can do audio stuff.
Yes.
Can we do an in memorama like from the Oscars?
Yes.
characters' names. Like that can't be hard, right? We can get that music and just
But
put
it's like
pictures
the Cantina song, but like slowed.
I will work on that. Listen, you know oh my gosh. Yeah, you know, we pour one out for all the
maybe do that.
I hardly need.
Yeah, we
I
lost
feel
a-
like there's more than that. It was like, oh, another. It's like every chapter is like another Jedi.
A lot,
Yeah,
but some of them
classic.
were
Like they lost. Oh well, it was almost Indira Stokes. I was worried she was gonna kick it too.
yeah.
But yeah, Burryaga lost his master, and that was tough. And then Burryaga, death by Rathtar. Come on,
Yeah.
that's a
And I kept waiting for him to get real graphic in how he was going to get killed. And then he just
Right.
wasn't. Like, I just kept waiting for him to be, like, ripped in half or something.
right. His arms ripped off in a
Yeah.
bitter twist of irony. There was a great Wookiee moment there with Burryaga where like they were sparring, and it was just the way that Claudia wrote it.
Yeah.
Where it was like he's like got Bell Zettifar just got staggered. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
The
he was-
early sparring scene, that was fun.
yeah, and suddenly I felt it, and I was like, oh yeah. I mean, actually, like we've seen it in animation, like Wookiee Jedis, but like
Yeah.
in live action, like a Wookiee, like the size of Black Chrysanthemum with a
Yeah.
huge lightsaber bearing all their weight into like a
Yeah.
battle against
Yeah.
another lightsaber, you'd just get like chucked.
You'd lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your arms would break. Yeah.
I would really love to see that in live action someday.
Bell Zettifar and Burryaga make a great team in this book, which I think
I know.
Yes.
throughout many chapters, it's just them working together, and they're fighting Rathtars at one point, and Bell Zettifar like goes to cut one in half, and like Burryaga stops him from cutting it in half, and he's like, they procreate by division, like
Right.
cell.
Like,
and I was
I
like,
don't know what's going to happen if we cut one in
Yeah.
half. We're just going to
and
have
he was
two.
like, okay, right, all right,
Yeah.
don't cut them in half.
Good point.
Yeah. So at least they expanded the lore on Rathtars. But yeah, if you like Rathtars, they are back in this book in a big
They're
way.
back. Have they ever gone away?
Oh, man, were
No,
they ever really
They seem
here?
to always be a problem in
Yeah.
the Star Wars galaxy.
That it was a funny beat though, where they were like, and I guess I kind of missed it at the beginning. They were like, "What are the odds?" But like they faked on their manifest with
Yeah.
the levelers in it that they were like
Yeah.
they were Rathtars,
I know.
and they parked right next to a thing with an actual and they like actually was carrying Rathtars, and they're like, "What are the
Yeah.
odds? Both of these things have Rathtars."
Yeah,
in them."
that's right. They open it. They're like, they're Rathtars in here. Yeah.
Yeah,
a bit-
and then there's
it's
like,
a bit of
"Oh, it is
overkill."
Rathtars. Yeah.
We have levelers, Rathars, and saboteurs. Like it is a lot for the Jedi. And also, I mean, we talked about or Grant in your summary, like the other part of Marchion Ro's scheme is that he did all these other random attacks to pull all the other Jedi and all the other people away, so no one could come to their rescue, which is like just really devious, right? This idea that this,
and brilliant because everyone's like, "What is it?" I actually want to. I have
but also send refugees to Starlight that are, undercover,
right?
Are double agents.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that was pretty great. There was a great line. What they don't show all of the attacks, but they do show one on like a thing in
the Chesby Temple.
Master
like
Imgri looked up
obliterate.
and for the first time in her life said the words "Call Coruscant." Imgri shook her head. The Force had already told her what was near. She goes, "Tell them we are gone."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh." I mean, that's a sick line. She's just like, "No, we're dead. Just tell them we're dead." And then like a second later, they were vaporized, which is like that's some dark stuff where you can tell the future and you're like, we're gonna die in 3 seconds.
Which we got a little bit of maybe one of those in the High Republic Adventure books, because remember they were on Takadana, and across from Maz's castle, there was a Jedi temple, and the Nihil attacked it randomly, and we didn't know why. And so I'm guessing that's part of that master plan, right? Like they had these random attacks. So I'm sure we're gonna see more of that in some of the ancillary stories and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the other attacks. Oh.
As far as like prophetic visions and stuff, we get a lot of that, the precognition with Elzar Man. Like his his visions, the Queen Thandanga of Iram or whatever her name is. Like you get like beats of her like and her people like as if like you see like Elzar seeing the future and seeing the devastation and whatnot, or their planet kind of falling apart.
Well, it was really cool. It was Sewell teased it in a way when like Elzar was up in the top of the spire of Starlight and just like broke down and started screaming.
Right.
Not something you'd see in Star Wars, usually, and like but he was definitely had a vision of all this stuff happening.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
But that was
Elzar Man has a crazy line where he says, "Damn the Nile, damn them to every hell of every mythology."
Oh right, yeah, that's a good line.
Nice, that line's bad.
I like that one too. Let's talk droids.
Sure.
There is a fantastic droid, and actually it was a beautiful like practical joke. JJ 5145, also known as 45.
Yeah. Awesome.
He's awesome. For those of you that have ever played Borderlands, I just had Claptrap's voice.
Very much so. Yeah.
That's actually very similar to what they do in the audiobook.
It's true. It's very close.
Very Claptrap-esque.
And it's a practical joke because Elzar.
Well, Stellan Geo's promised that he was going to be the one to take Elzar on his retreat, but he ended up sending Orla Jareni instead. Yeah. And so Elzar was like, "Thanks, chump. I thought you were a friend. Here's this gift to you." So Elzar gives him 4-5. It's an administrator droid with like too much pep in his step, and at
it's a little extra.
Yeah, it's a little extra. At first blush, it's like, okay, this guy's going to be on me all the time, asking me for tasks. But he ends up being kind of a boss.
Useful.
And he survives too, doesn't he?
Well, that's the thing.
He brings the saber at the end.
That's the thing. It's such a poignent end, right? Because he has to tell Elzar, "Oh, Stellan gave me as a gift to you." Yeah, it was.
Cinematic.
It did. It really did.
Movie.
Yeah.
Droid giving someone a saber, and like that action is it's really interesting action.
Yeah.
The saber hilt itself is almost an inanimate mechanism, and being handed to you by a droid. That's like that's iconic. It's in this book.
Yeah. Right. And obviously poetic because he was like playing the practical joke in his last act.
Yeah.
Powerful, beautiful, cinematic, gorgeous. But he was a fantastic droid. I just want to make sure we didn't overlook 4-5 because he was great.
Yeah, no, great droid. And then Carmine.
Carnine.
Sorry, Carnine.
It's like Carnage, but it's Carmine.
So I think it's like a crime droid, but like criminal.
Oh yeah, right, Carmine. Falcone droid.
Yeah. But it's Carnine. That's an eerie droid. That's Markion's kind of assassin droid or attack defense droid.
Yeah, he's like first line. I love that that Markion went full droid ship. I would do that too. He was like so worried about like other people underhanding them. He's like, I'm going full droids. And I love Gira Staros's like
revulsion.
Revulsion. Pure revulsion. Like why like it's really considered on like why would you trust your life to droids piloting your ship stars? Because it's like just not something you do back then.
Right.
It feels organic to him though, because he's like not another mouth to feed. He's so concerned about like resources and how much goes around. Now he can just be reckless and there's no accountability. No.
It's true. It also feels like it's coming from a place of paranoia, and I feel like that's going to be his ultimate downfall, right?
Yeah, definitely. The only people on that that ship are his Senator Roadbeef and his assistant Thea Fur.
Thea Far,
yeah.
Far? That was Far.
Yeah, Fair. I don't know.
Something.
And I look at her Thea Fur as kind of JJ 5145's opposite number. They're like both administrators, like pure administrators doing their thing, but she does it for evil. And, just to bask in the sunlight that is, or the dark sun that is Markion Row. And 5145 just likes making things awesome.
All shall know the might of the eye.
Yeah.
Glory to the eye. That's like
Glory
the
to
best part when the Nile saboteurs like meet each other and they're like, "Glory to the eye, glory to the eye." Or psycho cultists.
Yeah, that's good times. Glory to the eye. Yeah, well, he is indeed glorious in this, man. Throws a heck of a party.
For sure.
So everything goes wrong. Fires everywhere, explosions, cargo bays, in disarray. Then the thing just careens, falls down towards the ocean. Aviram, people get out.
Yeah, Stellan saves the city anyways with his last effort. Which is poetic and tough to deal with, but at least he saves that poor city. And there's a great moment where the leaders of that city are like, you know what, we could blow it out of the sky and kill all those people, but like that's not what we're about. And that was a powerful moment.
And he is highly responsible. He is the golden boy of the Jedi, and it felt organic that he would go down with the ship, given that he was filling in for Avar as Marshal.
Well, especially because his ego had been playing such a role in that book. Like he just needed that heroic moment. Yeah.
Yeah. Poor Stellan. I mean, he had the last book. He was the hero of the last book, right? That iconic scene where he's saving Lena So.
Right. But he kind of started to buy his own hype.
Yeah, he did. I loved that plot line where it's just like all you've been your whole life is just like you're nothing without the Jedi and without your Force. And
Orla just dunking on him, being like,
yeah,
you've never charted your own path. You've just listened to what the Jedi tell you to do.
Right.
Tell you what to do, and it's like the Force is not the Jedi. Like you need to understand that. And yeah, again, a lot of Last Jedi sort of messaging coming out of Orla Jareni in this book.
So I hope that's where we're going next. That I read this book and I think about what is the nature of the Jedi? Like, why do the Jedi keep doing this? Like, what are they? They're not thinking about the Force. They're just like caught up. They're like in the machine. They're they're custodians for the rest of the galaxy. What do you guys think that the Jedi are doing in the High Republic, their role in the High Republic versus where you think they should be in the High Republic? Is that an articulate enough question? You know what I mean?
I think they're going to deal with just kind of threats that are more anonymous and at large and not easily identifiable, and that's going to be the modernized Jedi that we get in the Republic of the prequels. Is this Jedi that kind of have now dealt with droid armies, have now dealt with merciless suicide, terrorists, that have dealt with like threats that aren't easily accounted for, threats that are kind of are more complex, more chaotic than your Sith,
Right, but I mean, just looking at what they are from what we've seen from this whole thing, like what is the Jedi's role in the galaxy? Like in the prequels, the downfall were like they were suddenly generals. And it's
I think they don't know by the time the prequels prequels. I think they're like, wow, now that the threats can get to this level, I don't really know what we should do here because it's just a moral conundrum.
And what's interesting in that Star Wars comic main run that I was talking about, we don't know when that ghost of Elzar Mann is from, if that makes sense. Like we don't know if it's before Starlight Beacon fell or after, how far in his story. But he talks to Luke about, the Jedi are not the only game in town when it comes to the Force. He mentions that to Luke. Like, there are the Night Sisters. There's this. We are not the end-all, be-all. There are other things. He also mentions that the Jedi have... He says something along the line of, and I don't have it in front of me, but that the Jedi's roles change based on what the galaxy needs. At times, we've been part of the government. At times, we've been scholars. At other times, we've been teachers. And I think that's part of maybe, that's why I honestly feel like it's a Stellan Gios past, or I'm sorry, an Elzar Mann past where we are right now. That maybe that's the lesson they learn, is that they have to be flexible, right? And maybe they lose that message by the time we see them in the prequel era.
That's the thing. I mean, they're clearly flawed here too. It's like,
it's
I guess my question is, what do you think the Jedi's role should be in the galaxy? Like, I mean, take it out of time, you know?
yeah.
I think diplomacy and peacekeeping works great.
Yeah,
I just think
agreed.
and just given their powers, like at one point in this book, Indira Stokes says, with our great power comes even greater courage. Like we have to bring even greater courage to this. And so,
right.
They should be NGO peacekeepers.
Yeah.
Like they should not be a military. They should not be part of the government, but they should be connected enough to know what's going on and have the ability to enter into things. It's almost like where we see at the very beginning of episode 1, right? Where they're going to try to solve a trade dispute. Great, right? Like try to be like
peacekeepers.
It's peacekeepers, but
but they should
exactly. Yeah.
What they should do is focus on the underrepresented and the disenfranchised of the galaxy, and they don't do that. What they do is just focus on the large bodies, the big planets, governments, and corporations. They don't focus
super
on
macro, right?
Yeah,
they don't focus on the slaves, for instance.
I
By the
was gonna say,
prequels,
maybe
they're still not going to save slaves. It's maybe slaves. Start
Can we
there.
agree that there are some objectively bad things like slavery, and when we come across it, we deal with it?
Yeah.
Can we just agree that slavery is objectively evil and we have the force and magic powers to do something about it? No? Okay, cool.
My answer is slavery. Go deal with that.
Do that, yeah.
We'll talk about the next.
Start there, then we'll have a conversation after you solve that.
Yeah, that's the stuff that I'm always thinking about here. It's just like, you guys, you're not like, there's a bit of hubris involved in like colonizing a new part of the galaxy, Like, it's like, why would you, you think like, you're gonna go and like, oh, we're gonna bring show you how great the galaxy is, and they're like, hucksters and charlatanly, like, look at how great civilization is. That's not the Jedi's role, And I think it's like they have hubris here, and then they're gonna fall, and they certainly have hubris in the prequels where they're just like, oh, I guess we're marshals of peace, or like now we're generals fighting for peace in a war. I'm wondering if they do sort of there's a reset here, like what the end game of the High Republic arc is, like when they finally rebuild, assuming they get destroyed, they're going to clearly rebuild. What pole star do they use? Guide star do they use as their ethos going forward?
But it's kind of frustrating to see how
scaled down. Maybe they're just I think you're right. It's scaled up to the point where it's like just become this giant institution, industrial kind of complex of just sending Jedi all over the galaxy. It's like part of the pare this down, let people discover the Force. Not everyone needs to become a Jedi. Like pare it down to just the teachings and learning about the light and the light side of the Force and being a sort of like
wandering monks, right?
Yeah, wandering monks.
I like what you said, Grant, like the macro versus the micro. Like instead of being this like dealing with all the major issues in the galaxy, like they shouldn't be guiding that. I think they should be out in the galaxy and very small scale, especially helping the people they're in contact with.
Well, if it's inevitable that the true Jedi is a pacifist, if that's kind of where it all leads to down at the end of the road, where it's like pacifism is the key to the light side and giving yourself to the Force and all that kind of stuff, then they should just become wandering monks and get rid of the saber combat and all that stuff. Like just get rid of.
Go that far. But okay, I see. Like that's definitely one way they can.
That's where it seems like audiences are okay with it going. Honestly, it just seems like that's where it seems like that seems to be an okay path for things to go. I'm a fan of kind of mimicking feudal Japan. I like martial Jedis. I like saber combat. I would like more saber combat in all of my Star Wars.
Yes,
but like major lightsaber fights in everything I see.
Well, it's weird, right? Because I'm trying to think of like what I want philosophically and what I want out of what I want out of entertainment.
Out of Star Wars,
right. And entertainment, yes, Grant, 100% want that. I like that. It also connects okay to me. Like I don't, I'm okay with it.
Like, a crazy anomaly in Star Wars is like the fantastical characters are being humbled in Star Wars. Like, that's just they're learning lessons that are causing them to think twice about being action heroes, you know what I mean,
Right.
in any way. And it's, for me, it's like, don't humble anyone in a fictional world. It's a fictional escapist reality.
Right.
No one needs to be humbled here. We can go off the wall. We can go over the top. It can be extravagant. It can be extraordinary. It can be heart pounding. It can be breathtaking. You know, it can be everything.
The question.
Sorry, before you go on. I definitely mean it within Star Wars. Like, it has to be fun. You know, like what role do you think? Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, I was gonna say, so my question is, this is called the High Republic. We've been told it's kind of like the Jedi at their height, right? And where they are at their best. And the question then I have is, are we like, where on the curve are we? Did this story start at the height of the Jedi, or are we following them through a low point where they're going to, after this, crest up to a high point, right? Or is this just is this just part of the slow decline?
Republic. So it's the height of the Republic, not necessarily.
Right. That's true. That's a good point. But I guess if that's the case, like, when were the Jedi good? Because I haven't seen the Jedi be good at anything yet.
I think that's what Luke and Ahsoka represent, though. Isn't that where it's all going? Is that the Jedi are inevitably?
Yeah, I would hope so.
Pure altruistic.
But tell those stories then, right? Like, I want to see those stories, because I've only ever seen the Jedi in the new canon, to be honest, failing.
Yeah.
Constantly failing.
Yeah, it's like, let's go to where it's okay to be a martial Jedi, or let's go to like pure altruist Jedi. Like, the place in between is tough for us as audience, because we realize the failures of the Jedi in the prequels, and a lot of this is almost just commentary on the blindness of the Jedi, and I think that's wearing thin at this point.
We got a lot in the prequels, and I'm like,
we're good now.
I'm like, I'm okay with these stories. I just would also like I understand nothing lasts forever. There's entropy in the galaxy. The Jedi's powers and abilities are going to wax and wane. But I'd love to see them at their height. You know, to tell me some stories.
That's where I think they're going. And
interesting. All right. I hope so.
I think that's like where we're going to end up here. I think it's just going to be a reset. So right now we're in a dark point. Then they're going to be at this altruistic point, or great point for the Jedi, and then it's going to come back around for the prequels, right? Like another 200 years, and they mess it up again. But I think the best thing, like, I enjoy martial Jedi. I love the fact that they are, have lightsabers and do lightsaber contact and defend the weak and do all that. But I think the main difference is that they need to completely like separate themselves from the politics and the ruling class, and like really concern themselves with the Force. Like, just think about the Force. Like, they do, like, their only concern, it shouldn't be the matters of beings in the galaxy and trade routes or anything of that. Like, they should be thinking about the Force at all times, and maintaining balance, and then helping the weak on a micro level, not a macro level. Like, not trying to sway the tide. Like Elzar Mann, instead of trying to push the waves, the ocean, to be which way you want it to be, you need to work within the ocean, which way it's flowing, but help as many people as you can, on a person-to-person basis. I don't know. I think that's where it's going, but it's just
ultimate peacekeeping might involve delving into both light and dark, just because you might want to learn new tactics. Like, you don't want to hurt someone in a choke, but maybe you want to do a stasis on someone, during when things go bad.
Right.
You want to hurt them. Like, maybe there's a whole school of thought that hasn't been invented yet in terms of like the ultimate peacekeeping school of thought and tactics and whatnot. And that might involve both sides of the Force. It might involve getting kind of strange with their doctrine, and you might get something that's more like a Herbert Dune type organization. Then you have Lucasian sort of thing.
But those are the kind of challenges I think Jedi should be facing, right? Things that involve the Force, the light side and the dark side, and how do you use one to help the overall light of the Jedi, or the light of the Force in the galaxy.
Which it seems to be their history, right? I mean, we know that the Jedi Temple on Coruscant's built on top of a dark Force nexus, right? Like, there's clearly in their history, they went around cleansing areas of the dark side, right? Like, so there was a time that they were focused, seems like, solely on issues of the Force.
Yeah.
I think that's a head, honestly. I think what you're talking about, Ben, might be a head. I'm talking past the sequel trilogy. I'm talking whatever Luke was sort of catching on to, whatever Ahsoka's chasing. I think there's something there. There's something that's like, we don't have to be a temple that teaches saber combat and being a warrior. It's more of like just being attuned.
I'd still like the saber combat, but yes,
Definitely saber combat.
And that's where I'm at.
No one's arguing against.
Yeah, I mean,
saber
even
combat.
In all these hundreds of years of peace, they still did saber combat. Just like, well, we need to defend the weak, right? So might as well use laser swords because it's.
We gotta have fun at the end of the day.
I guess it's so weird to me that they do that. It's like, that doesn't happen ever. Like, but anyway.
Did we cover this book, guys?
I think so. I think we did.
And then some.
Yeah.
It was a lovely book. It was a fantastic read. I'm glad
it was.
We got a chance to read it.
I do want to throw in one last comment, which is I almost wish there was one Jedi who was able to kind of pierce through the Eyes plan and sort of be obsessed with hyperspace travel or path ends and sort of figure out a way to get to Markion and so.
I think I agree. I think having a parallel story where there was maybe a lone Jedi just
it could be one master apprentice,
who even wasn't reporting back, so you can kind of keep it separate. They didn't know, but they were on their own little hunt, and then I would have enjoyed that because having them so unaware of him and so obsessed with Lorna D. It just got to the point of like, come on, there's not one Jedi who figured it out, who was,
Yeah, what's great is it could be like a Qui-Gon or a Ty York.
Yeah.
Kind of detached from
exactly.
which would be fun because it's
considered
that's another
a quack or not really.
You have the majority Jedi story, you have the villain story, and then it's fun to have rogue Jedi, rogue villain characters. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that. So it'd be fun.
It would be fun. It'd be super. All right, we did it. Thanks everyone for listening this week. Hope you enjoyed the book if you read it. Hope you enjoyed our recap if you didn't. And we will talk to you again next week. Please check out our Book of Boba Fett review for episode 3 that also came out this week. If you like Boba Fett, which is all of you, I assume. All right, great job. We'll talk to you next week. May the Force be with you.
This is Grex Kondak signing off. For the latest breaking news, follow @CoreWorldNews on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you and good night.
Remember, the Force will be with you always.